student questions Elon Musk's success. His answer changes young lives forever. The fluorescent lights of the 24-hour convenience store buzzed overhead as James stared at his phone's banking app. 1342. That's all he had left. His fingers trembled as he reached for another pack of ramen noodles, mentally calculating how many meals he could stretch from his remaining credit limit. Hey James, haven't seen you in here this late before. He looked up to see Mike, the regular night cashier, giving him a friendly wave. James forced a smile, grateful for the dim lighting that helped hide his red eyes. Yeah, just working. Late again, he mumbled, clutching the ramen packets. Still doing that tech company thing? Mike asked, scanning the items. My nephew's always talking about startups and being the next Elon Musk. You kids are something else, man. James's stomach tightened at the mention of Musk's name. Yeah, something like that. That'll be $487. James handed over his credit card, praying it wouldn't be declined. The seconds stretched as the machine processed the payment. When it finally beeped in approval, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. You okay, man? Mike asked, genuine concern in his voice. You're looking kind of rough. I'm fine, James said quickly, grabbing the plastic bag. Just tired. Thanks, Mike. The cold night air hit his face as he pushed through the store's doors. His old Honda Civic sat alone in the parking lot, a testament to how late it really was. The check engine light had been on for weeks now, but that was just another problem he couldn't afford to fix. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Sweetie, please call me. We're worried about you. Dad and I have been talking, and there's still a position open at his company. James couldn't read the rest through his suddenly blurry vision. He dropped into the driver's seat, the bag of ramen falling to the floor. The tears he'd been holding back all day finally broke free. 3 years. 3 years of his life. All his savings, and now maxed out credit cards. All for what? A failed app that nobody wanted, a gaming platform that crashed and burned, and now his latest venture, a social media analytics tool, was dying a slow death with only 50 users, most of them friends doing him a favor. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a news notification. Elon Musk's net worth soars to new heights as Tesla stock breaks records. James laughed bitterly, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. He opened X, scrolling through his feed. It was filled with entrepreneurs celebrating their successes, sharing their hustle lifestyle, and worshiping at the altar of tech billionaires. Another day, another billion. One post read, sharing Musk's latest tweet about Tesla's achievements. The comments were full of praise. The greatest innovator of our time. Pure genius. This is why he's the GOAT. Inspiration to all entrepreneurs. Never give up. Inspiration, James muttered, his hands starting to shake again. They don't know. Nobody knows. He thought about the nights he'd spent sleeping in this very car to save on rent. The shame of borrowing money from friends he could no longer face. The pitying looks from his former classmates who'd chosen safe corporate jobs and were now buying houses while he could barely afford ramen. His girlfriend, Sarah's words from their breakup 3 months ago echoed in his mind. I can't watch you do this to yourself anymore, James. You're obsessed with this impossible dream. When was the last time you actually lived? When was the last time you weren't either working or crying about work? He'd tried to explain it to her. Sarah, please. Every great entrepreneur goes through this. Musk almost went bankrupt before Tesla succeeded. This is just part of the journey. The journey to what? She'd asked, tears in her eyes. To becoming a billionaire. Is that really what you want? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're killing yourself chasing someone else's life. She'd been right about one thing. He was killing himself. His doctor had warned him about his blood pressure last month, but he couldn't afford the prescribed medication. His teeth ached from grinding them at night, but a dentist visit was out of the question. He'd lost 20 pounds in the past year. his clothes hanging loose on his frame. His phone buzzed again, another email from his last remaining investor. James, I think it's time we had a serious discussion about the future of the company. The metrics from the last 3 months are concerning. I know you're passionate about this, but we need to talk about an exit strategy. Let's meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. Best, David. The words blurred as fresh tears welled up. Exit strategy. Such a clean, professional way of saying give up. 3 years of his life, reduced to a polite business term. He opened X again, his thumbs moving before his brain could stop them. Elon Musk's profile loaded, showing his latest tweet about Mars colonization plans. James started typing, Elon Musk. He stopped, his hands shaking so badly he had to put the phone down. Was he really going to do this? Tweet at one of the world's richest men like some desperate fan? But the words kept coming, burning in his mind, demanding to be released. He picked up the phone again. Elon Musk, I'm 23. I failed 3 times trying to be like you. I'm broke. Everyone calls you a genius, but what about the pain? The nights crying alone? Tell us the truth. Please. His thumb hovered over the tweet button. In his mind, he could hear his father's voice from their last conversation. Son, there's no shame in admitting something isn't working. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. James looked at his tweet again. 3 years of pain, frustration, and broken dreams distilled into a few desperate lines. He thought about deleting it, about driving home and finally admitting defeat, about accepting his father's job offer and joining the ranks of those who'd given up on their dreams. Instead, he hit send. The tweet disappeared into the vast ocean of social media. Just another drop in an endless stream of messages directed at the tech billionaire. James stared at his phone, his reflection in the dark screen showing a stranger. Gaunt, tired, broken. What had he expected? That Elon Musk would actually read his message. That the man who was planning Mars colonies would care about some failed entrepreneur's tears. You're pathetic, he whispered to his reflection. He started the car, the engine making a worrying noise that he tried to ignore. It was time to go home. Not to his apartment, which he'd had to give up last month, but to his friend Tony's couch. Another night of pretending to be asleep when Tony got up for work, of hiding his shame behind fake smiles and empty promises that things would turn around soon. As he drove through the empty streets, his phone remained silent in the passenger seat. His tweet sat there in the digital void, a bottle thrown into an ocean of desperation, carrying a message he never expected anyone to read. Little did he know that in just a few hours, that message would change everything. The drive to Tony's apartment felt longer than usual. The streets were empty, but James's mind was crowded with memories. He passed the coffee shop where he'd first pitched his ideas to investors, now closed for the night. The tech hub where he'd once rented a desk, believing he was on his way to becoming the next success story. The bank where he'd gotten his first business loan, full of dreams and certainty. His phone lit up with another notification. A LinkedIn message this time. Hey James. Long time no see. Noticed you're still working on your startup. We have some great positions open at Google. Let me know if you'd like me to refer you. It was from Mark, his old college roommate. The same Mark who'd laughed at his entrepreneurial dreams 3 years ago, calling them unrealistic. Now, he was offering pity jobs. James pulled into the parking lot of Tony's apartment complex. He sat there for a moment, engine idling, watching the light in Tony's window. His friend had never complained about James crashing on his couch, but the shame was becoming unbearable. Just a few more days, James whispered to himself, the same lie he'd been telling for weeks. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a reminder from his calendar. Investor meeting, 9 a.m. tomorrow. The reality of tomorrow's meeting hit him again. David, his last investor, would want concrete numbers, projections, plans. All James had was a failing product and empty promises. He opened his laptop bag, pulling out the notebook where he kept his company's metrics. The pages were filled with graphs, all trending downward. User engagement, down. New signups, down. Revenue, non-existent. Maybe Dad was right, he muttered, flipping through the pages. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. His father's words from their last dinner together rang in his ears. James, look at me. You're my son, and I love you. But this isn't working. You're not Elon Musk. Nobody is. Come work for me. Learn the business. Build a real life. Dad, you don't understand, he'd argued. Every successful entrepreneur faces these moments. You have to push through. Push through to what? His father had asked. To more debt? More failure? More nights sleeping in your car? James hadn't known how to answer then. He still didn't. He gathered his things and headed up to Tony's apartment. The key felt heavy in his hand, another reminder of his dependence on others' kindness. Inside, the apartment was dark except for the glow of Tony's forgotten desk lamp. A note sat on the coffee table next to a fresh blanket and pillow. Hey man, had to head to my girlfriend's place. Left you some leftover pasta in the fridge. Don't forget to eat something real for once. James's throat tightened. He didn't deserve friends like this. He set up his makeshift bed on the couch, arranging his laptop and the ramen from earlier on Tony's coffee table. The pasta in the fridge would have to wait. He couldn't bear any more kindness tonight. Opening his laptop, he pulled up his company's dashboard. The numbers hadn't magically improved in the last few hours. 53 users, $3 in revenue this month, $2,000 in server costs. He opened a new tab and typed Elon Musk success story into the search bar. Hundreds of articles appeared, all celebrating the billionaire's journey. From South Africa to Mars, the making of a tech titan, Musk's brilliant strategy for success. But what about the real story? James whispered, scrolling through the endless praise. What about the moments like this? He switched back to X, looking at his tweet from earlier. 0 likes, 0 retweets, 0 responses. Just another shout into the void. His eyes drifted to his phone's clock. 2:37 a.m. The investor meeting was in less than 7 hours. He should sleep, should prepare, should do anything except what he was about to do. Instead, he opened a new tweet. Elon Musk, I keep reading about your successes. But what about right now? What about the entrepreneurs who are failing trying to follow your path? We're drowning. The media shows your victories. Show us your wounds. Please. His finger hovered over the tweet button again. This was even more desperate than his first tweet. More raw, more revealing. In the dim light of Tony's apartment, surrounded by the evidence of his failures and the kindness of others, James hit send. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He prayed, not to any particular god, but to whatever force might be listening. He prayed for a sign, for guidance, for something to tell him whether to keep pushing or finally give up. The laptop screen dimmed, then went dark, leaving him alone with his thoughts in the quiet apartment. In a few hours, he would have to face David and admit the truth about his failing company. For now, though, he could just sit here, another dreamer in the dark, waiting for an answer that would probably never come. Chapter 2. The message. James woke to sunlight streaming through Tony's living room window and the sound of coffee brewing. For a moment, he forgot everything. His failing company, the maxed-out credit cards, the desperate tweets he'd sent last night. Morning. Sunshine. Tony called from the kitchen. You look like death warmed over. James groaned, pushing himself up from the couch. His laptop had died sometime during the night, the screen black and lifeless like his entrepreneurial dreams. What time is it? He mumbled, reaching for his phone. 8:15. Tony replied, walking over with 2 coffee mugs. Don't you have that investor meeting at 9? James bolted upright, suddenly wide awake. Shit! 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 Relax, man. David's office is like 15 minutes away. Here, drink this first. Tony handed him a coffee mug that read, World's Okayest Entrepreneur. A gag gift from Better Days. James took a sip, his hands shaking slightly. I should just cancel. He muttered. What's the point? The numbers are terrible. The product's failing. And I'm... Hey! Tony cut him off, sitting down on the armchair across from him. Remember what you told me when my band broke up. Failure is just data for the next attempt. James finished, managing a weak smile. Yeah, but this is different. This isn't a garage band, Tony. This is my life. My future. Everything I've worked for. His phone buzzed. A text from David. Looking forward to our meeting. Bringing along a potential acquirer. Smart dress recommended. An acquirer? James read aloud, his stomach dropping. He's already trying to sell my company. Isn't that good news? Tony asked, sipping his coffee. I mean, at least someone wants to buy it. They don't want to buy it, James said bitterly. They want to acquihire me, buy the company for nothing, shut it down, and make me work for them. It's a pity purchase. He stood up, pacing Tony's small living room. God, I can't believe this is happening. 3 years of my life, and it ends with a pity purchase. At least you'd have a job, Tony pointed out. And healthcare. Remember healthcare? That thing normal people have? James's phone buzzed again. This time it was his mother. Honey, please call us. Your father's worried sick. We saw your credit card statement. Great. James groaned. They're monitoring my credit cards now. He headed to the bathroom, catching sight of himself in the mirror. Tony was right. He did look like death warmed over. Dark circles under his eyes, 3 days of stubble, his once fitted shirt now hanging loose on his frame. You have any clean dress shirts I can borrow? He called out to Tony. Check the closet. Blue one should fit you. As James rummaged through Tony's closet, his phone started ringing. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. You going to answer that? Tony asked from the doorway. James declined the call. Not today. I can't. I just can't. He found a blue shirt that looked reasonably professional and started changing. His phone buzzed again. Sarah had left a voicemail. James, I know we're not. I saw your tweet. The one to Elon Musk. Please call me back. I'm worried about you. His heart stopped. My tweet? He quickly opened X and his world tilted. On its axis, his mentions were exploding. Thousands of notifications flooded his screen. Tony! He called out, his voice cracking. Tony! What? What's wrong? Tony rushed in, still holding his coffee. Look at this. James thrust his phone at his friend. Tony's eyes widened as he scrolled. Holy shit. Holy shit, man. Your tweet. It's going viral. James snatched the phone back, his hands trembling as he read the responses. This is so real. I'm crying reading this. Finally, someone said it. Every entrepreneur needs to read this thread. Elon Musk, please respond to this. No, 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 James muttered, running his fingers through his hair. This wasn't supposed to happen. It was just... His phone rang again. An unknown number this time. Hello? He answered hesitantly. Is this James Morrison? A professional voice asked. Yes. This is Amanda from TechCrunch. We'd love to get your comments on your viral tweet and the entrepreneurial mental health crisis it's highlighting. James ended the call, his breathing becoming rapid and shallow. Hey, man, sit down, Tony said, guiding him to the couch. You're having a panic attack. I can't deal with this right now. James gasped. The investor meeting? David, I have to. His phone kept buzzing with notifications. More journalists, more entrepreneurs sharing their stories, more people retweeting his desperate late-night message. Cancel the meeting, Tony suggested. Tell David you're sick. James shook his head. Can't. The acquirer's already on their way. This is my last chance to. His voice trailed off as a new notification appeared. His phone slipped from his numb fingers, clattering to the floor. James. Tony picked up the phone, then froze. Holy shit. There, at the top of James's notifications, was a tweet from Elon Musk. I see you. Check your DMs. The room started spinning. James could hear Tony saying something, but the words seemed far away. 3 years of struggle, of failure, of doubt, and now this. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely pick up his phone. One new DM. Elon Musk. Your honesty caught my attention. Cancel whatever you're doing today. Come to Tesla HQ 2 p.m. We'll talk about those tears. This isn't real, James whispered. This can't be real. His phone rang again. David this time. The meeting. James remembered. What do I do? What do I tell him? Tony grabbed the phone and answered it himself. David. Hi, this is Tony, James's friend. Listen, there's been a situation. No. He's fine. Have you checked X this morning? As Tony handled the call, James sat on the couch, staring at Musk's message. His tweet had been a bottle thrown into the digital ocean, a desperate cry into the void. He never expected it to be heard, let alone answered. His phone buzzed with another DM from Musk. And James, bring your failure data. All of it. Time to learn some real lessons. Tony, James called out, his voice barely a whisper. What do I do? Tony, just finishing the call with David, looked at his friend with a mix of amazement and concern. You go. You tell your story. And you better text me every detail, you lucky bastard. James nodded slowly. Reality starting to sink in. He had 6 hours to prepare for a meeting he never expected, with a man he'd idolized and resented in equal measure. 6 hours to gather 3 years of failure into a presentable format. His phone kept buzzing. More journalists, more entrepreneurs, more people sharing their own stories of failure and pain. But James barely noticed. He was too busy staring at those 2 simple words that would change everything. I see you. The next few hours passed in a blur. James barely registered Tony helping him get ready, lending him a better suit, forcing him to eat something. His mind was focused on one thing, gathering every piece of evidence of his failures. Your hands are shaking, Tony observed as James tried to organize his files. Maybe you should. I can't stop now. James cut him off. This is everything I've been waiting for. A chance to understand. A chance to... His voice broke. Tony put a hand on his shoulder. A chance to be seen. Yeah, James whispered. To be seen. As the morning progressed, James's story exploded across social media. His phone had become unusable, buzzing constantly with notifications. Tony had to set up a makeshift command center on his kitchen table, using his laptop to help manage the chaos. CNN wants an interview, Tony called out, scanning through emails. So does Bloomberg, Forbes, and... Wait, is that the Ellen show? James was sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers, financial statements, user metrics, failed pitch decks, everything that documented his journey of failure. Tell them all no. I can't. I need to focus on this meeting. James, Tony said, gently, you do realize what's happening, right? You've struck a nerve. Look at these responses. He turned his laptop around, showing James the growing thread under his original tweet. I thought I was the only one crying myself to sleep every night. 3.2K likes lost my house chasing the startup dream. Nobody talks about this side of entrepreneurship. 5.0K likes reading this in my office, trying not to break down. We need this conversation. 8.7K likes. The doorbell rang, making them both jump. Tony went to answer it, then quickly shut the door. Reporters, he explained. They're starting to gather outside. James's phone rang again, his father this time. After 4 rings, he finally answered. Dad, James, are you okay? His father's voice was thick with concern. Your mother's been crying all morning. We saw your tweet, and now it's all over the news. I'm fine, Dad. Really, it's just something happened. We know. It's everywhere. Son, please come home. Whatever's happening, we can figure it out together. James felt tears welling up again. Dad, Elon Musk replied. He wants to meet me today. There was a long silence on the other end. What are you going to do? I have to go. I have to know. I have to understand if all this pain was worth it. His father sighed. Just be careful, son. And call your mother. She needs to hear your voice. After hanging up, James noticed a new text from Sarah. I know we're not together anymore, but I'm proud of you for being honest, for showing the real side of this journey. Please let me know you're okay. Tony was still managing the digital chaos when James's phone lit up with another DM from Musk. Seeing the response to your tweet. You've opened a door that needed opening. Bring your laptop too. The world needs to hear the full story. Tony, James called out, his voice shaking. I think this is bigger than just me now. You think? Tony laughed, gesturing at his laptop screen. Dude, the real entrepreneurship is trending. You're trending. Every startup founder with a Twitter account is sharing their story now. James looked at the growing pile of documents around him. Each paper a record of a failure, a setback, a moment of doubt. For 3 years, he'd seen them as proof of his inadequacy. Now, they felt like something else. Something important. I need to make copies, he said suddenly. Of everything. Why? Because James paused, reading through more responses to his tweet. Because maybe my failures aren't just mine. Maybe they're part of something bigger. Tony looked at his friend, still wearing the borrowed suit, still surrounded by evidence of his failures. But something had changed. The desperation from last night was gone, replaced by something else. Purpose. Here's what we're going to do, Tony said, grabbing his car keys. We're going to Office Depot, making copies of everything. Then we're getting you something to eat. Real food, not ramen. Then I'm driving you to Tesla HQ because there's no way you're facing this alone. James started to protest, but Tony cut him off. Shut up and start gathering those papers. You've been alone in this long enough. As they prepared to leave, navigating past the growing crowd of reporters outside, James's phone buzzed one final time. Another DM from Musk. One more thing. Bring that fear you felt when you sent that tweet. That raw honesty. The world of entrepreneurship needs more of that and less bullshit success porn. Tony peeked through the blinds at the media circus, forming outside his apartment. Ready for this? James looked at his phone, at the thousands of people sharing their stories of failure and pain, at the message from the man he'd both admired and resented. No, he admitted, but I'm going anyway.